In progress.
All right, one of my subs suggested I might do another video on Think Before You Sleep, and I agree because this one is a bunk video saying the reason why men aren't getting married, which is posturing because men are getting married. If they aren't getting married, it's because the women aren't getting married. He's trying to posture that men are choosing not to get married. Men aren't choosing anything. Women just aren't marrying them. This has 1 million views, so we have to debunk this. When you see what's going on, you'll realize he's all for defunct gender roles where men get really nothing. So let's hear this.
His whole family are takeaway addicts.
Most people have a Friday night takeaway, but we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night takeaway.
Sam works 2 days a week as a banking consultant. The other 5 are spent cleaning her home.
Wait.
There you go. She works 2 days a week and she is married.
Wait, she only works 2 days a week but feeds her kids fast food 5 days a week? I need to hear that again because I don't believe it.
How many takeaways do you have in a week?
At least 5.
At least 5 days a week. For those of you who aren't British, takeaway is fast food. So basically you eat fast food every day. Think of how much money that costs.
Well, this is the thing. She only works 2 days a week because she got married, so you didn't have to work. This money isn't her money she's spending. So it's worth it to her. It only means something to the husband, but the husband is willing to put up with this, okay? Because men pay women to be around, whether it's a girlfriend or a wife. So there's no reason to complain about that.
It right, and that made the original script nightmarishly long. But before I get strawmanned by critics who think I'm saying that all women are like Sam and that's why we have problems, understand, I'm not saying that. I never say that all women are one particular way. That is statistically unlikely.
This is bullshit because you'll hear them admit that women choose men for their money. And if man doesn't make a lot of money, they don't choose them. So he generalizes all women later on. So I'm willing to generalize and say there is a basic human nature. And this is what men need to hear. Like I said, this video's got 1 million views, so it needs some pushback.
So when I use someone as an example to describe a larger problem, I am saying that represents a segment of society. In the fast food documentary, Sam represents one segment of women in society, Kara represents a different segment, and Taylor, the 19-year-old single mother.
Yeah, but they're all the same way. They all live off men one way or another, whether it's the single mother off men's taxes or these other women who have husbands. In any event, men are paying. Now, this is why he likes this Karen girl.
Kara, the other woman I'm skipping over, has a problem that is adequately solved in the documentary, and I agree with the method used to resolve it, so I have nothing to add.
So he's fine with this woman being a stay-at-home parasite, right? But he's going to blame, just a minute.
Kara's family problems aren't caused by feminism or modern values,
so this is bullshit too. So he's suggesting this woman who's taking takeout is doing it because she has modern day values. No. This is one of the times feminism isn't responsible for anything. All these women are choosing, these married women are choosing men to work for them so they don't have to work for a living. It's just coincidental whether they get takeout or buy or make food on their own. It's coincidental. So we'll get to the meat and potatoes of this video. Now he's going to be talking about this woman's making meals, but I want you to look at her husband. He seems very happy.
If Cuba's mum Sam does cook a home meal, the reception is lukewarm.
Sam, your pasta.
Nice.
It's half cooked.
Nobody.
You see the smile on his face? Look, this guy knows he has to pay to have this woman around. She's agreed to be paid to have around. That's why she only works 2 days a week. He's joshing her and smiling. He's not there for the meals. No man cares what the woman does, really. He just wants her to be around. Well, I shouldn't say he doesn't care what she does. He knows he just wants her to be there and basically not be around other guys and be home when he shows up. Because that's all, guys can't demand anything. Women have all the power in the relationship. Women, if they put any kind of limitation on them, they just won't bother. So this is why this is a bullshit title. Men aren't getting married because women aren't marrying them. But as soon as a woman says, I do, guys like this are glad to do it. So let's get to about here.
You're cooking. Here's the thing. When you go into a relationship, you should have certain expectations. Women certainly do. If you are a guy and you are a pushover who makes no money, then most women will dump you.
Really? I thought he was only talking about certain categories of women. Now he's saying most women. I'm saying all women. He's admitting that these women have expectations, and their expectations are for you to work for them. So there's no reason to complain that this woman isn't doing anything. Her husband is there so she doesn't have to work. So that includes making meals.
Women in general do not marry guys who make less money than they do. Sam has what she wants. She has a guy who makes enough money to allow her to not work full time.
Exactly. Think before you sleep, which includes making meals. Since you're admitting that she's there, or the husband's there so she doesn't have to work for a living, then why do you think that she's going to do any other kind of work?
But what does he get? He gets 3 kids who are addicted to junk food and will very likely have future health problems. This is a major issue with feminist ideology that even affects women who do want to be more traditional.
No, this woman back here, she's not taking advantage of her husband because of feminism. Feminism is just an outward manifestation of what women want in the first place. She's doing it because all women do this. Think before you sleep. In the 1800s, there were high state class women that didn't work for a living. If the man was rich enough, she didn't have to work for a living. Modern day living, the average wealth is high enough that a woman can get a man to look after her. In the middle classes and the lower classes now. Well, at least the middle classes. So that's all that's been going on. This has nothing to do with feminism.
Back in the past, women were trained to be housewives from childhood. By the time they got married, they already had all the necessary skills to run a household.
Yeah, in the past, life was labor intensive, and now it's not. And so now the girls can add this to the list of demands. Remember, think before you sleep, the person with the power in the relationship is the one who loves the least. Men want to be with women. Women don't really care if they're with men. So men have to bribe women into their lives. That's why you're in this skewed relationship. And it's always going to be skewed if a man wants to be with a woman for that reason.
That's not to say there was never a bad cook, but none of them was so bad or so out of time that they preferred to dump garbage down their kids' throats. And here's what happens. You want a guy to make 6 figures so you can stay at home, but your housewife skills are barely worth minimum wage because you are essentially walking in as unskilled labor.
Pal, modern day housework is worth less than minimum wage because the machines do the work. Think before you sleep. If you're a single man, you don't starve to death. You go to work, you come home, you feed yourself, you cook for yourself, and you clean for yourself. So a woman's housewife is doing stuff that men do, and even single women do, in addition to their job. So what you're advocating for is nothing for men.
How is that fair? I have to be one of the top earners in America, I have to have a six-pack, and I have to be over 6 foot, but in return, I get a wife who is so bad at cooking that she can't even make spaghetti.
So how is it fair that you've got all that and the thing you want to bring to the table is she cooks you a single meal? There's no fairness to that anyway. Man, talk about a low bar.
Now do you see why men don't want to get married?
You're wrong. That woman has a husband. You're looking at married couples, and he was smiling. If you look back here at 4:30, he's got a big grin on his face. He wants to get married. You want to get married. If you can't get married, it's because the woman doesn't want you.
Women aren't being taught this stuff anymore. Women are being taught to be men because feminists have deemed the female role as useless and oppressive.
No, this woman you're showing is taking on the standard female role where she's in the home and she doesn't have to lift a finger and the man does all the work. That's the standard female role. She is demanding her standard female role, and she's demanding the man take his standard male role of workhorse. So you're just obviously wrong by your own video.
Are women not offended by that? Having
No.
feminists say for
Why would they be offended about getting an easy lifestyle? That'd be like saying, don't men find it offensive by riding horses? They should walk everywhere and show their independence. What real man rides a horse,
for years that they are useless unless they act like a man, totally ignoring the fact that the traditional female role serves a very important purpose?
There were women in workhouses and factories in the 1800s. Women always worked. It's just that they can demand men do all the work now. It's not a man's role to work like a slave. Women have done it in the past, and they should be doing an equal part now.
So what happens is that women get the provider that they want, but when it comes to men, we either get a modern woman who wants a minimum wage daycare employee to raise her kids, or we get a woman who has no skills in keeping a home.
Well, there aren't any real skills keeping a home anyway. I can vacuum a rug and put on a can of beans or spaghetti. Even I can cook, though, if I wanted to. It takes no time to cut up potatoes and boil them. You're asking for nothing.
She gets a traditional man, but we don't get a traditional woman.
Yes, you do. This is tradition. Men working for women has always been a tradition. And women, like I said, have worked outside of the home when they were single.
And honestly, after listening to tons of women, I don't think they understand how difficult this stuff is to learn. You can't just learn it on the weekend. To make desirable meals, you have to train really hard for a minimum of 3 to 4 years.
This is bullshit. One of my brothers-in-laws, he loves to eat, he loves cooking. He works a full-time job, he's traveling all the time, he comes home and he cooks stuff, and he loves doing it. Anyone can learn to cook on the weekend. Even if I've got a recipe book. All you have to do is follow the recipe. It might take some trial and error, but trust me, if you like doing it and you do it once or twice a weekend, you'll get good at it in no time. So this is just wrong. The only way it'd be that way if the woman wanted to be a prime chef.
That is only one of the essential homemaking skills. You still have cleaning, childcare, social event planning, design, and small money saving skills like sewing. However, what's frequently
Why would a modern day woman learn sewing? If she's selecting a man who has enough money, she can just shop for new clothes all the time. So she doesn't need that.
Happening is that the new air quote traditional women spend all of their lives learning workplace skills, but have no skills in the home.
Well, but that's great though. If they're learning workplace skills, that mean they can go to work and they could be closer to equal partners. That's what a man supposedly was looking for, a woman who was a working partner. Of course, men can't really demand that, because then the women don't get married. And this is why men aren't getting married, because if men make demands of any kind, then the woman doesn't.
Then they decide they don't want a career and instead want to stay at home, but they expect a man with high level skills and high level pay to accept them as housewives who are equal to them, when the reality is that their skills as a housewife are worth nothing.
Well, it's worth nothing no matter what, even if they're good at it. That's why they get married to men like this. But again, the whole point is the man works for a living. He works for the woman. So there's still no incentive to be good at the little that they do. This is common sense 101.
They want on the job training as a housewife because they have potential or because they are a fast learner, and you should just accept them on love. They don't accept men on love. No matter how much they try to play word games, women do have expectations. Just ask and watch how many of them will say they will not date long term or marry a guy who makes less money than they do.
Exactly. Okay. So again, Think Before You Sleep does talk about all women. And he's pointing out something that's very truthful. So what is he complaining about? You either pay the bride price to have the woman around, or you don't.
So I don't care if you have potential or you're a fast learner. You are expecting to get a guy who is all trained up and well into his career, but you haven't even taken your first stay-at-home mom 101 class. That's not
God, this is pathetic. This is pathetic. Of course, they're not going to. They selected the man to work for them. So why would they work at all? You're showing a case where a woman is only working 2 days a week and she doesn't have to bother making anything, of course.
a fair deal, and at this point, if you are a man who puts up with this stuff, then you get what you deserve.
Well, men have no rights in their marriages. So I agree. Men get what they deserve if they get married. But think before you sleep. You don't even care about the fact that men have no rights in their marriage. All you care about is that this woman who's parasiting off a guy and has all the power in the relationship isn't making a homemade meal. That's it.
Half the problem is all of the men out there who are accepting these terms and telling women that this isn't even trade.
Well, they're not accepting an even trade anyway. So, I mean, what can I say? The women have upped the price. The average woman is Darth Vader. I have altered the deal. They have all the power in the situation. Men want to get married and women don't really care. So they alter the deal. What are you going to do about it?
So back to the fast food documentary.
No, that's not important.
Of how much power lies in that role. Again, women are not offended that feminists have been calling housewives useless for decades. I mean, I remember hearing a story that
Feminists are all for women being housewives. They enforce gender roles. They want women to be able to do this. That's why there's no real pushback.
back in the day, Betty Crocker came out with instant cakes where you just had to add water. A lot of women wouldn't buy them because it was too easy and it made them look lazy. What happened to that?
It wasn't because it made them look lazy. It's because they were competing with one another. Back in the day, women were still very much about finding that provider in that day. And so they were competing with one another. They didn't care about the man.
Where is the pride in not taking the easy way out?
Well, women never had that pride. That's why they have always selected men for their servitude. Think before you sleep. I mean, dude, you've, you've got to come to terms with this.
Though credit where credit is due, this is not to say that Sam is all around terrible at everything. She does appear to keep the house clean, and more importantly, her behavior management skills with her kids are actually pretty good. You
Oh, don't care about that. Okay, let's get on to something else.
said, which was basically do your job by making your own food, and surprise, they work.
Okay, we don't care about the food thing. Let's see if I can get a little further ahead. This is the delusion coming out here.
We have a happy ending. All of these ideals that are causing problems in relationships stem from something feminists have been promoting for decades, which is telling women that they can be independent from everyone. They can do everything by themselves and still get everything they want.
Well, that's true though. Women can postpone getting married. There is no wall that women hit. I've seen all kinds of women, like you guys say, what's that silly talk, cock carousel? The girls go when they're young, they bang the guys, they get older, then they get married. And they do get married. And they can have their career or they can become a housewife. They have all those choices. Feminism didn't teach them anything. This is just the average woman making these demands.
That's stupid. No one can have anything without making sacrifices, no one is independent, and no one can do everything on their own.
But that's not what's going on. This woman you're showing here is getting a man to do everything. And women can get men to do everything because men are willing. And you've even said so in this video.
You need other people, not just for social reasons, but for practical reasons as well. It takes more than one person to build a house. You can't do everything by yourself, and we live in a social atmosphere.
I disagree. Women are getting married to the men, and the men do have to do everything on their own. They do have to do all the work. Because that's the deal. It's either that or the marriage doesn't happen. So think before you sleep, you're just wrong.
This is the problem with modern beliefs. They are designed to make people believe that they can do everything on their own.
This isn't a modern day belief. That woman you showed got married to a man and she only has to work 2 days a week and she doesn't have to make meals. She gets a takeout all the time. She can do whatever she wants. This isn't a belief, this is a fact.
Why is that promoted by things like mainstream media? It's because people who are independent are very easy to defeat.
Mainstream media isn't promoting this. Women are demanding this and men are giving into their demands. That's it. That has nothing to do with the media.
Look at all authoritarian societies. One of the first things they do is damage and destroy people's relationships so they can't fend for themselves without the government, and so they won't work together to fight against the power structure.
This is lizard man speak. This is reptilian men speak. This woman got married to this guy, so he'd do all the labor because she wanted to. She didn't have to work for a living, and he was willing to do this. This is not the destruction of a relationship. The destruction of the relationship is that women don't even care to be married to men, really. And when they do get jobs on their own, a lot of them decide not to get married. They're not interested. That's not due to feminism or the government or the media or some outside force. None of that. It just shows you that women don't want to be with men. That's it.
That's why feminism has trained women to be a bunch of entitled narcissists with no value outside of their body, and feminism has trained men to be weak losers who cry and share their feelings.
Well, feminism is a hate movement, and it is something that needs to be dealt with. But what you're showing here has nothing to do with that. This woman got married to this man and had an easy life because of it. And no one taught her to do that. He had to offer that to her or she wouldn't have bothered with him. This is human nature. This is not a destroyed relationship. This relationship is what the relationship has always been.
Women don't want men who act like women, and men don't want women who act like men.
I disagree with the second part. Men would love a woman who worked a full week and came home and shared the bills with him. And a man would love a woman who would come and pay him to be a house husband while she went out from work and was glad that he was home when she got there. Men would love women that act like men.
Then you add in family court, which is heavily skewed towards women who don't have to have any traditional skills, but they expect their man to be traditional. And shockingly, men don't want to get married. This is all.
Of course, he's wrong again. Men do want to get married. This guy, like I said, where is he? If you look at, there he is, about 4:30. Just take a look. There's that guy with a great big smile on his face. He does want to get married. And he was willing to get married when he did all the labor. So you're just wrong. Think before you sleep.
All to destroy relationships. And what are men supposed to do in this situation? In most
They either pay the bribe or they stay single. Those are your choices.
cases, you either get a woman who wants to be a housewife with none of the housewife skills, or worse, a modern woman who won't settle for a man who will be a stay-at-home dad and wants to throw the kid in daycare.
Okay, so admitting she doesn't want to stay home with dad. The traditional wife doesn't want to stay at home dad either. Because the stay-at-home dad would be taking on the women's role. And the women want men in their gender roles. Otherwise, they deselect them. It's that simple. So, I mean, this is all we need to go with this video. This guy is out of his mind. He's a right-wing traditional, he's a trad con. And he's all for these shit gender roles for men. The only thing he wants is that a woman might pay not pay, obviously, but make a meal. And how does her making a meal change the rules in the court that are skewed against men? These women, these traditional women, that traditional woman you showed back there, she can still divorce her husband and make her husband pay child support. Just because he makes meals, it means nothing.
Both of which will very likely lead to a toxic relationship that will result in a divorce and the man getting screwed because family court is heavily biased against men.
Okay, so how does this woman learning how to cook a meal that a guy likes change the family courts or make the relationship toxic or prevent her from divorcing him? Are you suggesting the reason she divorces man is she forgot to make him a meal? So this is a non sequitur. And what this guy, Think Before You Sleep, should be advocating for is activism by men to change the family courts if they want to get in this shit deal of marriage in the first place. But he's not. He's just bitching about women not making meals.
How is that all working out for society? Do you think it's a coincidence that divorce rates started skyrocketing when modern relationships were implemented?
Modern relationships weren't implemented. The modern day came and people changed according to the modern day. Women were using men in the past. Women worked in factories in the 1800s. So there were working women. And obviously they preferred that, I guess, to living with a man. And women always married men for men's labor. So nothing has changed. So, and the relationships aren't harmed because it's a modern day relationship. All women are modern women, all of them.
I think that's some pretty good evidence that they don't work. As for men, there's not much we can do.
And I disagree. They are working for the women. This woman back here with the vacuum, right here. Where is she? Bring her up here. If she'll come up, yeah. She's getting everything she wants. It works for her. It's not working for you. It works for her husband too, even though he's getting a shit deal. He was smiling, so I guess he was happy to be like a little slave boy. But this relationship here is working. This show is just talking about her feeding her, changing maybe the kids' habits so they don't get sick, but that's it. But other than that, this is a typical working marriage. He was smiling, she's happy. They had no problem with one another. So think before you sleep. All you're saying is you don't mind men getting used and abused. Wow, this is pathetic. Anyway, that's enough of this.